I just want to give a quick thanks to the Tier 5 channel members and Patreons. Bob the Dragon, Datamagnet, Cat Crab Lobster, Duck Machine, Try Again 95, and Astraya the Dreamer. Thank you all very, very much. Story number 1. A princess, a knight, and a dragon walk into a bar. She orders a drink, written by Glitchkey. That's an awful big coin you're trying to use, the man behind the counter said, his dark eyes glinting in the firelight as he held it up for a better look. He set it on the counter in front of him and then leaned towards the armored figure in front of him. An awfully big coin for a place this far out in the sticks. Indeed, said the armored figure, their voice higher than expected, given the bulk of their armor. How far would that take me here? The innkeeper stood back up, tapping the counter slightly with one hand while the other rubbed the back of his neck. Plus the charging fee for the merchant caravan would charge me, I'd say. He paused for a moment, idle tapping and the popping of the hearth's fire, the only sounds in the room. I'd say a good year or so of room and board, but, He lifted his hand from the counter and brought it down with a slap. I won't be risking my business with something so suspicious. Crown inspectors are no joke and, He bowed his head slightly before looking straight at the armored figure again. Harboring a criminal would get me shared sentence, you see. So I gotta be sure. The armored figure was silent for long enough that you could swear the tension between the two caused the air itself to dance. Yes, the figure finally began. I can see that being a problem for you. The figure reached up and grabbed their helmet, putting it off and setting it down on the counter with a thunk. With the helmet off, the armored figure was plainly a woman, albeit one of impressive stature. She reached up on the mat of scarlet hair and had just been freed from the helmet, and winced for a moment. God, so glad Mother's taught me something for this. Her hand glowed for a moment as she pulled it across her hair, and the unruly bundle untangled into a long cascade of brilliant red. It would take me a week otherwise, so, she said, looking at the innkeeper with her unnervingly golden eyes. I think there are only 2 people in the kingdom who look like this. Am I safe to assume, the innkeeper asked, eyes wide as he straightened his back and lowered his eyes to the floor, that you are Her Royal Highness Princess Annalise? His hand shook slightly as he held on his sides. Oh my yes, she smiled, eyes glittering as she took in how nervous he was over his over-familiar address of a noble. No matter that he had no cause to know that one way or the other. Much as my mother would love to be mistaken for me, I am the princess. She took a step to the side and then sank into one of the stools lined up in front of the counter. Don't worry about the formalities. I'm sure they'll be tiresome to maintain for a month or 2 while I'm here. A month? The man leaned against the wall behind him, one hand to his chest. My Highness, what reason could you have for staying somewhere like, this? He gestured to the room around them. For a month. Oh, plenty of reasons. You'll probably be getting some sort of royal proclamation sometime this week. She sighed, her own hand tapping out a staccato rhythm on the counter this time. It'll say something about me being missing, and the Black Knight preparing to rescue me from the dragon who stole me away. I think... The innkeeper took a moment to breathe, then sat heavily on a stool that he kept behind the counter. I don't think I'd like to see the Black Knight tearing the place to pieces, trying to take you back to the castle. Well, I suppose you wouldn't know this, but, She grabbed her helmet off the counter and held it up, before tossing it to her other hand and setting it back down. I'm also the Black Knight, and I have no intent of tearing some innocent man's inn to pieces in order to rescue myself from a dragon. You want a dragon, are you? No. The innkeeper blinked. I don't believe I am. Well, there you have it. No reason to battle a dragon here. She thought for a moment, then tapped a coin that was still sitting on the counter. How about we start in on this with a bit of ale? Keep the extra as thanks for putting up with me. And maybe as a cost for a bit of silencer. Yes, I think I could use some myself. The innkeeper stood up and puttered about, grabbing a pair of tankards and filling them before setting them on the counter in front of the Princess Knight, and sitting back down himself. "That doesn't explain the dragon, though, or the fact that the king is sending you to save yourself." "Well, the king does know that I am the Black Knight," she winked at him. "No way a masked knight stays masked for nearly 10 years without powerful backing." "That honestly just makes this more confusing," the innkeeper said, picking up his own flagon and taking a deep drink. "Oh, I can do you one better," she said. Her golden eyes glinted in the firelight. "I'm also the dragon." As if to emphasize the point, a rather clear abundance of pointed teeth caught the light as she smiled at the innkeeper, the pupils in her golden eyes stretching vertically for a moment before her face and teeth returned to normal. "I, see." The innkeeper looked at his suddenly empty tankard. "Does the, king know?" "Does my father know that his own daughter, born by the mysterious foreign queen he famously rescued from a dragon as a runaway prince/adventurer, is a dragon?" I didn't mean to imply." She held up her hand to stop him, grinning widely all the while. "Yes, he knows. He's never actually slain a dragon, you see. That said," she grimaced, eyes looking somewhere far beyond this room, "you will not believe how many times I've heard accidental misphrasing about him having lain a dragon. It gets old." The innkeeper coughed, face turning red as he choked and spluttered and finally burst into a full-bellied laughter. "And before you ask, the whole thing started because some new maid saw me and a half-dragon in my own bedchamber, and kicked up a fuss about me being stolen away by a dragon before I could stop her. I wasn't going to." "Oh, of course you weren't going to pry. I suggest you never wager money on a card game. By the way," the princess smiled at him. "Anyway, yes, the king knows, and I tried to get him to stop it. But no, of course not. He hasn't had this much fun since he abandoned his duties as a prince to go play adventurer." She sighed before downing the rest of the drink. "So now I get to stay out of the way for a month or 3 while Mother Dearest arranges a mock battle with one of my aunts and convinces one of my cousins to let me parade them through the city like the biggest prize at the fair. And," she slammed her gauntleted fist on the table, "if my father dares suggest I marry myself or battling myself to rescue myself from myself during the award ceremony at the end, I will absolutely tear off my helmet and transform right there and then in court. Give the nobles something they'll never forget." End of story. Story number 2. The Bounty Hunter, written by Valley24. "I'm not asking again," the Krapats said angrily. "Hand over your credits and weapons now." The human ignored him and kept eating his meal. From the moment he had entered the diner, all eyes had turned on him. How dare a lowly human enter this place, let alone one brandishing a bounty hunter ID, in the most crime-ridden place on Auction 8. "You are gonna regret me asking again," the Krapat said, eyes narrowing, grip tightening on his knife. The human took a sip of his ale, wiped his mouth and said, "Have you heard of the Red Legionnaire Hunters? It is said that they were the best soldiers around. If you needed someone dead, a war won, a regiment toppled, whatever, they were the ones you called." He took another bite, the eyes of the carpets following his every move carefully. "They were good, too good, and it got their heads. It didn't take long till they became outlaws themselves, taking whatever they thought was theirs, killing, pillaging, assaulting. But no one could touch them. They won every battle, killed every bounty hunter set upon them. They were feared, so much that no one would stop them anymore. They became akin to gods." "What are you talking about? Give me your credits!" The Krapats became red with anger, his eyes narrowing, his stance more aggressive than it was already. "They knew this, and their crimes got worse and worse," the human continued, unaware or purposely ignoring the hostile alien next to him. "However, they made a mistake." The human finished his drink. "They kidnapped the wrong person, the Prince of Regalis. His father, unable to cough up the ransom, got his son's head back in a box. The human ate the last of his meal and shoved the plate away from him. Outraged, he put a bounty on their heads. It wasn't much in credits, but he promised to whomever claimed the bounty a master-crafted gun forged by the master artificer of his court. The Crippets lost his patience and screamed, "Enough! Hand over!" And he leapt towards the human. Almost too fast to see, the human dodged the attack, grabbed the knife, and rammed it through the thick arm of the surprised alien, pinning him to the table. As the other patrons got up and supported their buddy, the human drew a silver hand cannon emblazoned with the royal emblem of the Regulus Empire. He said calmly, "My point being, it took me 2 days to track them down, 4 hours to catch up to their ship, 20 minutes to board, and less than 4 minutes before I killed them all and claimed the bounty." The human wiped his mouth and cocked the gun. "How long do you think you would last?" End of story. And